We are absolutely stoked today because we've got Alex Skolnick in the house, and we'll be featuring him here on this TrueFire live broadcast. You know, we've been talking about working together with Alex, I don't know how many years now, and that's not uncommon. But the stars have finally aligned. Here we are. And I think, you know, whether you're already a big fan of Alex, and if you're not, I guarantee you will be very shortly. He's here doing a new project. We'll talk about that in a minute. But let's talk about where and how you may have come across Alex Skolnick. If you were into the heavy metal scene back in the 80s, or even today for that matter, you know Alex as the lead guitarist of Testament. He joined at age 16, which in itself is like crazy, right? Soon after, he emerged as one of the original melodic thrash, you know, guitarists. If you're into the jazz scene, and many TrueFire students are, you know, definitely jazzers, you might know Alex as the jazz guitarist headliner at, you know, prestigious clubs like the Blue Note in Milan, the Agartha in Prague, or, you know, New York City's Iridium. Alex lives in New York City right now. It's a really kind of vibrant contributor to that whole scene there. I love this quote. Bill Makowski from Downbeat says, Skolnick runs the guitarist gamut from lush chord melodies to Wes Montgomery style octaves to screaming, sunny, Chirac-esque skronking. I think is how you pronounce that. But obviously, a big contrast to the metal thing, right? You dig jazz rock, you might know Alex as a member of top ensembles like Jane Gedder's Premonition, or celebrating Alec Holdsworth project, where he actually fills in for the late great Holdsworth and tours with Holdsworth's band. If you're a lover of acoustic music, you know Alex as a member of the critically acclaimed World Acoustic Project, Planetary Coalition. In our opinion, you would be really, really hard-pressed to find any other player, you know, who embraces so many different styles and techniques and is a master at all of them. Making Music article summed it up pretty nicely. Though he's pretty much a household name in heavy metal, Alex defies categorization by musical genre. Alex, welcome to TrueFire, man. You know, your pedigree's like a mile long. That was a big intro. We made you play in for, what, a couple, 3 minutes there, but I'm sure our audience is digging it.
That was just lost in a random jam.
So,
hey, everybody.
How you doing, man?
Good, man. Good to see you. Good to see everybody out there.
You
Great
have
to be here.
A lot of fans. We have,
cool.
Man, folks from all over the world, Germany, Prague, Serbia, Atlanta, all over the States, all over the world.
They do not disappoint. My fans are the best.
You have awesome fans and a really, you know, incredible kind of social media thing happening.
I am proud of my fans.
So you're here doing a project. Mm-hmm. You're calling what?
This is going to be called Unbound Guitar. And some of you may be familiar with the term Unbound. It's a new opening track of my new album. But it's also the title of a live album. But more importantly, it's a word that just means without limits. And that's really what this course is all about, is getting past limits as far as guitar playing. And also, you know, it's for many different styles of guitar player, or guitarists who want to play more than one style, as I do. Not having any limits and just being unbound as a musician.
which is, really number one. We've always wanted to work with you. We've been talking to you for, I don't know, 5-6 years.
Yeah, we've been talking about this for years. Yeah,
We really have.
it's been
And
hard
you're
to
an incredible. I mean, you do
Scheduling's
hundreds
been
of
tough.
dates a year.
Yeah,
and it's
hundreds.
tough. It's tough getting the schedules, not just the schedules to mesh up, but for you to have the time to kind of think through what you want to do and how you want to approach it. And in this particular case, man, it was like, okay, well, where do we start? Do we do the jazz thing, the acoustic thing, the rock thing, where do we start? And I think Alex, had the perfect answer to that. And basically you told us about, there are certain building blocks, if you will, foundational, if you will, techniques, harmonic approaches, creative approaches, that you've learned and have become expert at over the years, and you leverage all of those in any style that you play. Can you talk to that a little bit?
Yeah, I think for starting out, I don't want this to be a course that's geared towards any specific type of music I've done. And I know there are requests. I've seen the comment sections. Is there going to be a thing on this tune? Is there going to be a thing on this tune? From the stuff I'm most well known for, which of course, it includes Testament and the Trio, but other stuff. And I think there will be time for that. I think we're seeing this as a continuing multi-course situation. But to start out, I want this to be for all guitar players, whether you're familiar with any specific aspect of my work or not. You don't have to know who I am. In fact, that's fine. And I encourage guitar players who don't know who I am. You may find something useful in this course. And I know there's some other great TrueFire courses that are very stylistic and focused on whether maybe blues or country or certain jazz, classic rock. And I plan to cover a lot of different ground. And this first course is really just about building blocks, and it's exercises and just ways of thinking that I apply to all the different styles I use. So I hope it appeals to everybody, and then we'll build off it. And I think eventually there will be some courses focusing on specific styles.
And we're excited about this, call it an Alex Skolnick library of education. That'll take several years to build, particularly because of, kind of the approaches and the objectives of the course. So, even this course took months of preparation and thinking and blueprinting and all that. We're 2 days already in the studio shooting the video segments. And, I have to say, man, you've done like a phenomenal job of envisioning the curriculum and then, presenting it here on video. And of course, there'll be tab and notation and, the video sync and all that good stuff. But let's share with folks kind of the curricular approach. We start with a section on harmonic approaches, correct?
Right.
So we've got, you start off talking about pentatonics.
Right.
Give us a short wrap. Don't give away everything because we're limited on time here. And by the way, this is going to be a long course with tons of musical illustrations, some killer performance soloing etudes. And I know that many of you are going to go right there, pull out the tab and notation, want to dig right in. But talk a little bit about pentatonics. Your view on pentatonics.
Yeah, I want to start by saying I enjoy teaching. I really like to teach, and you hear about musicians that don't wish they had to teach less, and I want to teach more. I've had some great students, and I've enjoyed workshops and appearing at camps. One of the most recent ones I did was my old teacher, Joe Satriani, who at his G4, and I've just had some great teachers over the years, and I like to share what I learned. But I've also come up with some approaches that work for me that are that feel unique. So pentatonics are one of the first things you tend to learn on guitar is a pentatonic scale. So for example, this shape right here. Right, you think of that as A minor pentatonic. You've heard that. You've heard, Stairway to Heaven. Right, it's used a lot. It's a familiar sound. But what I talk about is not only that scale itself, but the relative scales, such as the next position, right? Such as C major, right? You've probably recognized this, right? And just how those relate to different chords. Those are basically the same thing. So what I was playing in the intro music used both of those, but also just getting out of that position without just thinking, oh, I'm stuck here. Well, what if I look at this? What if I look at it up and down the neck and not just across the strings? Well, then this. Right? What if I do an octave higher? Or an octave higher? Right? That's something, and again, I'm not going to give too much away, but I call that the sliding scale because there's that slide, right? And that works over C major very well, right? Here's a C major chord. Right? It also works over A minor. So here's an A minor chord. So with the pentatonics, I talk about how they relate to the chords, how to not be stuck thinking about one position on the neck, and just how to get more mileage out of those shapes.
Yeah, you do a great couple of segments on one octave sliding scales, multi-octave sliding scales, and I can tell you, just from feedback from students, because we all learn the pentatonic scale in position, and kind of get anchored there. And then we see players like yourself, you're basically flying all over the fretboard from low to high. I think you've done, an amazing job at kind of unlocking the door to, how to navigate across the entire fretboard. And the cool thing I think about the way you presented pentatonic scale is we all have our vocabulary of licks we play in a pentatonic scale. You can take those licks and now play them all over, across 3 octaves.
Yeah, and it's also in tandem with certain techniques. So there's a little section on sliding, for example, and you might think, okay, what do I do with this? This isn't that interesting, but suddenly, I slide to this note. Right? And then it sounds more interesting. Or I slide and then add some extra notes. Or maybe I'll add a bend. Right? So there at the end, I slid after doing a bend. And just, these little ingredients like a slide and a bend, they're so basic, but they're part of what gives, guitar licks character. And I think too often we're stuck in, the process of memorizing a scale, and then you're kind of stuck in the scale. Whereas what I focus on more in my course is, knowing the scale, but having it in the background. It's really more for reference. I focus more on specific licks and specific techniques that help you get more mileage out of the scales.
Which is great because you basically take something that we all know, are very, very familiar with, but show us how to make music with it, which is, very ear and eye opening at the same time. So there's a ton of other stuff you cover in that first section of harmonic basics. You've got arpeggios, you've got some very cool workouts, some harmonic intervals. Definitely, that section worth the price of admission alone, I guess, as they say. The second section, you start talking about, some of the essential techniques, like the sliding technique you just showed. You've got hammer-ons and pull-offs, a simple legato jam. Talk to us a little bit about your legato, which you're a master of,
Well, I try to incorporate techniques from music I've listened to and guitar players I've listened to. And as far as legato, legato is basically not picking. So it can involve the stuff we've talked about, the slides, but also pull-offs. All right, so there's so much cool stuff that you can do. And I'm looking at pretty simple music for this time around. I think a big problem that some students have is just trying to do too much too fast, and I can relate, because you hear some really advanced music and you want to just jump right in and do that. But you can do some of those same techniques and get your feet wet in with much simpler music. So there are a couple bluesy progressions on this. One I created specifically for this course is it's a minor blues. It's a very good example of using minor techniques or using these ideas over minor sounding rhythm. But then there's others that they're very specifically major, and I think when people start out, because earlier I mentioned the scale, the minor pentatonic. To some, it can be confusing at first. So people think pentatonic, they automatically think of that scale, which is really a minor scale. And I really go into, the differences of major and minor and techniques like legato and how to, tell the difference and how to use them over different chords, how to use the same licks over different chords by just moving them.
Yeah, the very cool thing that you do is you'll give us kind of a bite-sized bit of insight on a technique or harmonic approach, and then you'll show us, in a musical context, how to make great music with that. Perfect segue you set up. Can we play that blues jam for, the blues track for everyone? You play a little bit over that for us?
Sure.
Which one, Alex?
So this will be, it's called Minor Venture. It has a little bit of a surf sound, which is why it's called Venture, because the Ventures are one of the great surf rock.
Should we roll it?
Let's roll it. Yeah,
Roll
I'll
it.
just play over a little bit of it.
incredible, man. Really incredible.
That's fun. And that's fun stuff. That's the type of thing. I play like that a lot when I'm not on stage and when the record light isn't hit. This type of stuff I warm up on. And I like to share that. This course is a great opportunity for me to share sides of my playing that you haven't heard yet. Other than the occasional, like, short Instagram clip.
Yeah, I mean, when you first came in and we went over the tracks, first of all, we thought the tracks were live tracks, we go, what New York City studio did you do? Who'd you have come in and do it? Alex did all these tracks himself, on his computer. You played the bass, right? You played the guitar parts, programmed the drums, right? Mixed it all together, basically on his laptop. They sound phenomenal.
Thank you.
He gave me some tips on how to use some of those tools. You used Logic.
Yes.
And Serious Drummer, right?
Superior Drummer 3. And I should give a shout out to my dudes at TuneTrack.
Yeah,
Who
TuneTrack.
built that. This is just a game-changing product.
It really is. And, we've been hearing that a lot lately. And what you just brought in just absolutely is, testimony to how incredible it is. And you say
testament.
a testament. There you go.
Couldn't resist.
But
I should also mention the guitar sounds on there are Amplitude by IK Multimedia, who is
right.
So I'm really lucky to have these great companies that have hooked me up with this gear, and I've spent a lot of this year sort of watching video tutorials and wrapping my head around this stuff, because I'm not somebody that doesn't come naturally to me, the technology, but once you get the hang of it, it's pretty cool what you can do. So I'm having a lot of fun with it.
Yeah, the results really are amazing. We really couldn't distinguish, at first blush, whether they were live or not live. And
all
these
live.
tracks come with a course as usual. So Alex plays over all of them in the soloing performance studies, and then you get the tracks to learn the solos note for note, pull some licks out, or just jam over them yourself. Man, that's a whole other course we could do in the library at some point.
Yeah.
Everything was done. You brought out your little laptop and showed all the tool set right there. He travels with the stuff. It's incredible, and I really think it's a skill, to your point, that we all need to learn. It's part of making music, right?
Again, I think it's a big realization for me as well. Every time I do home recording, like, I realize the more you understand the other instruments, the better. And we make fun of bass players. The bass only has 4 strings, and it's the bass is very sophisticated. And to do my bass tracks, I own one bass. I own a Fender Marcus Miller jazz bass, and I got it fixed up and ready to play. But I really spent some time listening to bass players, real bass players, to get it. It's really not that simple.
It's not.
But it really helps your own guitar. You become more aware of it, I think. And the same thing with programming drums. Okay, I didn't physically play the drum patterns, but just being aware, where is the kick drum, and as you're playing on top of it, just that awareness, I think, really helps you as a musician, and it helps you play better solos and rhythms.
Yeah, killer. So that blues solo, by the way, was completely improvised, beautifully crafted, and I guess we can add now bluesman to the mile long pedigree, right? We actually talked at lunch that we could do a whole course on blues and kind of your take on it.
Yeah, I do blues, and when I play with my trio, there's some blues moments. And people tell me often, you need to record a blues album.
A blues album.
I have, I hadn't really thought of it before, but and it's not something I don't want to like reinvent myself.
Right.
There's plenty of great blues
Yeah, but
players.
that at the same time is also kind of who you are, Unbound.
It is,
you
and
know?
I was doing blues stuff before I was
Right.
doing metal, so
Right.
it's always there.
You have license and authority to play any style you want, anytime you want, man. I'm
Thanks.
sure none of us and none of your fans will bitch about that.
Well, it relates. It relates in a lot of ways.
So the second section was on, you covered a bunch of essential techniques: sliding, hammer-ons, legato, some great segments on bending, and then show us how to bring it all together to create. I think you made a great point, and you illustrate that point in the course of it's not knowing the notes of the scale. It's how you use techniques like that to be expressive, and kind of expand your musicality. You can make a lot of music with 5 notes, right? Is basically what you were saying. The third section is harmonic exercises. You do a crash course on modes. Sorry, Lydian. You'll get that when you get the course. It was a great moment here, and you show us a variety of ways to work these harmonic exercises: up the triad, down the mode, up the mode, down the triad. We'll save that for the course, but I mean, also an incredible section. The section that I know that we and all of your fans out there were very excited about was section 4 on stylistic approaches, right? And how you use expressions like pinch harmonics, rake sweeps, two-handed tapping, repeater riffs, adding flash, melodic approaches in pretty much all of the different styles that you play to one degree or another. Pick any one of those and give us a short lesson on it, would you?
Yeah, well, it's all related. And I think you can take any of those techniques and apply them to different styles. Just so for one example, we'll talk about harmonics. So I did a little section on harmonics, and we all know. These harmonics, right? The main ones at the 12th fret, which are 7th fret, right, 5th fret. But if I fret at the 1st fret, right? So like everything moves up. So now my 12th fret harmonics are actually at the 13th fret, right? And then I have my 5th fret harmonics are here, right? It's hard to get those, but you hear those, right? So the main ones are at the 12th fret. So if I say I move up here, right, 12 frets higher, 12 frets higher, and eventually I'm off the fretboard, but I still know where the harmonics are, right? And this comes in handy. Because now I can do a pinched harmonic. I'm picking and playing the harmonic at the same time. I go into more detail in the course, but with each note, I have these harmonics, and it sounds better with distortion. And every guitar is different. Every guitar is going to have a different spot for the harmonics. But I talk about how players like Billy Gibbons, right? Or Jeff Beck, my friend Mr. Satriani. You hear that often, but I really I break it down and talk about how different styles, how different players use it, how I use it, and it's a fun topic.
Yeah, and what's cool, it definitely is that unbound thing, right? Like you see that technique a lot in fingerstyle or acoustic music, and you're showing how to take, that same technique, that same kind of expressive quality, and apply it, in any style of music, which is comes in very handy, doesn't it, to kind of make the music you're making in that style kind of cut through the clutter of what might be normal, right?
Yeah, absolutely.
Then, hey, let's play another track from the course. Pick one.
Okay. Before we do, I'll just say that there's some logic to these tracks, right? So the first track you heard was it's in C major, and it's basically every degree in the key of C major, right? So you have 7 notes of C major, and if you play that backwards, right, you get this, and that chord progression, it's basically each of those roots played as a chord. And then going back to G to resolve it. There are several songs that do that, familiar songs. So I actually call that a whiter shade of young romance, because it reminds me of Trip to the Light Fandango, right? That's the right key for that. But it's also Goodbye to Romance by Ozzy Osbourne. Today it's been and gone. Tomorrow will I find the sun? Right? Same thing. And you'll hear when I solo, the guitar player I probably reference the most is Randy Rhoads. I can't help it. Yeah, he's such a huge influence. But it's also All the Young Dudes, which was written by David Bowie. Now, that original was done in D, and actually so was Goodbye to Romance. But the Bowie version is actually in C. And anyway, I think it helps you sort of hear all the degrees within a key.
So just to for those of us that need a really remedial understanding of that, you're taking the key of C, let's say, and you're playing all of the chords in that harmonized scale. So could you do that and call out the chords?
Sure. So it's I remember I'm going backwards. At C major. This is called G over B. It's really a G chord. But if you play the root as B, or I shouldn't say the root, but the low note, the bass note. And then A minor over G. So it's just A minor with the bass note of G. F, E minor, D minor, and back to G with the root in G. You could go the other way, too. If you were to go forwards, you would get C major, D minor, E minor, F, G, A minor, G over B, and back to C. So those first 4 chords, going up, that's used in songs as well. Da, 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 da. Right, the Beatles. And so I like to use examples like this because most of us have grown up hearing those songs. They're relatable to other songs. I mean, I've mentioned these 3 main rock songs by Mott the Hoople, Ozzy Osbourne, and Procol Harum. But even outside of rock, you think of if you play that in 3, it's Piano Man by Billy Joel. Da 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 da. Same thing. If you do it faster, it's
Very cool.
That's another song. There's even another Bowie song that does the same thing. Changes. Changes, face the strange. It changes. Yeah. So I like relating these things to actual music.
Yeah.
And then this chord, the A minor, that's the root of one of the other tracks, which I'd like to play. The track I did, now technically I don't really get into what key it's in, but there's two parts to it. And I am thinking, I'm using it more as a vehicle for pentatonic shapes. Earlier I mentioned this, right? A minor pentatonic and C major pentatonic. Right here I'm doing it as a sliding scale. I could do it across the neck, across the strings. So that's the progression.
So A minor to D.
Yes.
Right?
Now, I don't go into the details of what key that is, but
right.
The second part of that actually switches keys, and it's F to G to A, which is the same key we've been looking at, C major. So it relates to it, but it takes it somewhere else.
Can we roll that? And
Let's
have you
roll
play
that.
over it? Okay.
Yeah. Oh, that's
Wrong track.
Yeah, that was the first track.
That was the first one.
I forgot what did I call this one? MJ on the Run. It's called. I think it was called MJ on the Run or Last Wings or something like. Yes. And the reason I've bounced these titles around, the influence for this part. Well, there's two big influences. Like, so the first one is a song by Tom Petty called "Mary Jane's Last Dance," right? Which is right. So it's a very similar groove. But I'm convinced he borrowed that
Yeah.
from this. Which is by Paul McCartney and Wings. The second section of Band on the Run.
And he probably borrowed that. There's a lot of borrowing going on.
Probably borrowed that from somebody else.
In music, right?
Yes. So I don't copy either of those rhythms, but the groove is kind of in that category. It's kind of a bouncy groove. And I'm just playing A minor to D.
Okay. And then the change of
and then
key
it changes to F to G to A minor.
Let's roll that one. killer, man.
All right, try not to get too carried away. I'm trying to keep it relatively simple.
You know, we just had a comment on the chat, you know, super tasty, which we
Oh,
must
cool.
have said a couple dozen times.
Cool.
You know,
Tasty. That's really what I'm trying to go for. Because this is, I'm trying, with this course, I'm trying to keep it relatable, learnable. Not, it's not strictly for advanced players.
Right. And, you know, I mean, you're playing to begin with. I mean, look, when you were a young gun, you know, you'd pull both guns out and you'd be blazing away. And that's what you did. And, you know, that's what you needed to do. And what's interesting about kind of following your music over the years across all the various styles is, you know, your kind of your elegance and your taste in what you're doing, very melodic. And what's great for students like ourselves is, you know, you take that track, you take the solo that you played over that track, you know, sure, there's a few moments where you might pull out the guns, but there's a lot of accessible information there, which helps us understand, you know, your creative and harmonic approaches. And I think that's, you know, I just think that's brilliant of you for presenting your material in the way that you do, because we can all get involved. You know, we can all learn something from that.
Well, you don't, I mean, part of it is as well, you don't have to do all that stuff. Like, it's great if you have technique and you can get a nice technique together. But, you know, if I got called into a recording session, you know, which has happened. I live in New York and I play guitar. And
Yeah.
I've played on some sessions that, you know, nobody, you know, knows about. It's, you know, it's got to fit the music.
Right.
And there's some really cool stuff you can do that doesn't involve that much technique.
Yeah.
You know, just listen, you know, listening to the tunes I referred to, you know, like Mike Campbell, for example. I mean, what a tasty player.
Mm-hmm.
And if I got called to record a tune like that, I'm much better off playing, you know, in the vein of Mike Campbell than saying, "Hey, look, I can do Satriani or Yngwie licks."
Mm-hmm.
You know, it's not, you know, it's not really going to work. Now that said, there are some moments where, yeah, I do get carried away, and
Right.
you'll see. You know, there's
like I
some
said,
red meat for the folks
You
on
do
this
have license and full authority to do that, and we're, you know, we all expect that in
Yeah.
the course. But you know,
not
I
that
wanted
much
to
of it.
point out
That's not
that
what the course is all about.
no,
That's
it's
the
not.
main-
And there's so much accessible stuff in here. You know, the topic you're talking about, it comes up a lot here with, you know, players who, you know, you take somebody like Larry Carlton. He talks about, you know, think like an arranger, you know. And,
that's a good one. Yeah.
you know, other guys talk about there's two audiences that guitar players play for. You know, some of them play for other guitar players.
Yes.
And some of them, and, you know, most of the great players play for the audience.
Yes.
And the audience doesn't always know what to do with, you know, a lot of black, you know, in a bar music, right? They like tasty melodic music. And, you know,
I, to be honest, as a listener, I'm not that interested in music that is for
Right.
guitar players. To me, it's very obvious.
yeah.
I almost feel like, you know, I'm around guitar enough. Like,
Right.
when
Right.
I-
It can be self-indulgent, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
So listen, we have, gosh, you know, we want to get to the gear section.
Mm-hmm.
We want you to play another track, but let's do some questions
I would love
from the
to
audience.
take some questions.
And if you haven't asked a question yet, please post it, and we'll try to get Alex to answer it. So, you know, I've got a bunch here. So briefly,
Bring them on.
let's see.
I am ready.
Why didn't you introduce jazz harmony to Testament when you rejoined?
Why did I?
Why didn't you?
Oh, I did not. Oh, that's an interesting question. You know, it's out of respect. Like you know, I respect the music. I'm not going to try to make it something it isn't.
Mm-hmm.
I have I have other musicians I play with that speak that language, and that's really, you know, I have other vehicles, especially my trio.
Mm-hmm.
I should mention new album.
Show it, man. It's killer.
Well,
too.
I think of it, Conundrum. It's been getting great reviews. I feel like this is the music when I first started playing jazz. This is what I envisioned. I'm finally able to do it. So
Nice.
It's on sale now.
Pick it up.
Cool back cover too. Anyway, so I have this. So for Jazz Harmony, that's my vehicle for Jazz Harmony.
Right.
However, also if you listen to my solos with Testament, it does get snuck in there sometimes. But the other guys in the band, that's not their language. So I let them do what they do. I'm not going to try to force them to play differently. But within the solos, I mean, there's a tune called More Than Meets the Eye, where I do a lick. It's something like... Right? And that's, I'm not going to get into technical details, but it's a very jazzy idea.
But you'll spice it every now and then. But I love your answer. You respect the music for what it is. Not try to make it something that it isn't. Right?
Exactly.
Favorite current blues guitar player? They want to know.
Oh, that's
and you can name 3, so you don't have to pick a favorite. But go throw out some names.
There's a guy on the TrueFire roster that I've become friends with, who is literally one of my favorites. His name's Mike Zito. Hi, Mike. I think people should check him out. Check out what he's doing. I mean,
he's a great. We were talking about him the other night, and so odd how you run into him so many times in so many weird situations, but. You guys have become good friends. He is an incredible player. He was here, just like last month or something. So we'll say, hey, Mike, as well.
Yeah. And then also, I saw him on tour with a guitar player named Tinsley Ellis. I'd never heard of him. And it's just, how have I not heard of this guy?
I know, it's crazy.
And there's some great guys that, obviously I like, the well-known guys, but... those, these are players I really like. Mike Zito and Tinsley Ellis. These are a couple players that people I think really need to check out. And also Robert Randolph, he's not really a guitar player. I mean, he's a lap steel player. But
what's the name of that band? Randolph.
Robert Randolph Family Band.
Yeah. He's phenomenal.
I mean, what he's doing is just super cool.
Yeah.
I actually had the privilege to sit in with him. When they played Brooklyn Bowl.
Wow.
And I think that's part of what's triggered my interest in my renewed interest in the blues. So, and there's plenty more, but those are the 3 current guys that come to mind.
Today, what style do you listen to?
Oh, I'm sorry. I should mention one more.
Go ahead.
Sorry. Samantha Fish is just amazing.
Oh, yeah, phenomenal.
You need to get her.
Yes, we're trying.
Here,
as we speak, we're trying. Do you know her?
We've met, but I know Mike knows her. I know Mike has produced her.
Call Mike, ask Mike. In fact, it was Mike who recommended her to us. And support the cause. Tell her
she's taking
to get in
it
here.
Like next level.
What style or styles do you listen to and learn from the most today?
Today, it's funny. My listening is a little bit separate from my learning. I think just doing music full time. I'm playing hundreds of shows a year. There are times I do want to enjoy music as a listener, but I want to turn my brain off. I don't want to hear music that's going to make me run and get my guitar.
So what are you listening to?
So I listen to a lot of classical piano. I know that's not that exciting. I actually, and I did it. I started this a few years ago. Just a steady diet of classical piano. Because I figured it would have nothing to do with my own music. But sure enough, I failed, and I ended up arranging this classical piece on my new record.
Awesome.
Play a little sample. That's Eric Satie, Gymnopédie numéro 1. So
But
anyway.
you know, what a great answer. It's like, you know.
But that's mainly it. I try to, or sometimes soundtrack music that just doesn't have that much to do with the guitar.
Right. To kind of give your ear and head a little bit of a break, right?
Yeah. But then there's other times where, I realized like, having done this for a long time now, you reach the point where you can actually hear music that made you want to play jazz guitar, for example, or learn more about it, and you can figure it out.
Right.
So I do sometimes go back to some records that really like early George Benson.
Oh God!
For example,
yeah. in the
especially
in the
record.
little organ trios, that stuff.
Well, yeah, the Cooker.
Yeah.
But also there's a record he did in this before the vocals called Bad Benson, which is just amazing,
crazy.
And Michael Brecker, his solo records, which some of them he's got. Your friend Mike Stern, a friend of mine, who's a great player. And Metheny is on some of the. He often had great guitar as well, and I'm a big John Scofield fan as well. So when I want to get in the mood for like guitar-based stuff, that's often what I'll listen to.
Cool, man. Well, this question I think you answered, which was, can you discuss your approach to scale positions relative to phrasing? And that's exactly what you do in this course. So. And you spoke to that a little bit.
Yeah, but I do go quite into depth about triads as well. There's a lot.
Yeah, I think
there.
I love the section on triads. And that's, man, that is, so many people skip over triads thinking it's too basic.
Right.
But it is the building block to greatness, isn't it? I mean, here's one. Can you discuss how you incorporate saxophone-inspired lines like on Souls of Black?
Oh, that's interesting. Well, I think saxophone, it's kind of, it's very naturally a legato sound, but, I think if you listen to sax players, they have some phrases that are really kind of unique to sax players. With blues, for example, if you approach blues really from a guitar standpoint, you think, E, right? And the blues I did was E. E is very popular because it's the lowest string, right? So you have so many tunes written in E, right? Riffs. But when you get into saxophone, their open key is not E, right? They depending on the type of saxophone, it can be B flat if it's a tenor saxophone, or
and when you say open key, what do you mean by that? The key that's most natural to the instrument?
Yeah, I guess it would take a sax player. Let's ask Bill Evans or something.
Right, exactly.
To explain it. But I think, the reason a lot of their music is written in keys like F and B flat and E flat, it's just, it's their natural key.
Okay.
I don't know I'm sure it has something to do
Probably has something to do with the positioning of the fingers and what's easier versus more difficult, right?
Exactly. The same way, we have E, A, D. And C is very important because, C is the piano open key, right? And I think of that, and I do play a bit of piano. There's, it's just all the white keys, but that's also related to A minor, So that relates more directly to guitar. But saxophone, for example, F, right? Like, why would you play a blues in F? But, a tune like, stuff like that. And shapes in F, stuff like that is, comes from the horn. And so I think it's, saxophone, learning saxophone music has helped as far as learning other keys. And also just that shape. That's a tune called, Now's the Time by Charlie Parker. So why, that shape. It makes you think differently than you do on guitar. Guitar, you look at things, okay.
Right.
That way.
So legato as an expressive technique kind of mimics what they're doing as well. What a saxophonist might do, I guess, when he's running over the notes, right?
Oh, absolutely. It's more, it's more slides. Yeah, it's. I think it helps. I haven't. I need to brush up on some of my saxophone melodies, but it really helps your legato, and I think it just helps you get around the neck better.
Cool. How do I work chords into my solos without having to think about it?
Chords into the solo.
Probably he means chord punches, maybe, or
like chord melodies, right?
I think he's talking about playing single notes and then hitting a chord, like punching a chord, perhaps.
I think probably the best way to answer that would be, triads. To keep, and I do get into triads quite a bit. And I was just talking about keys and how E is like a main key on guitar.
Yeah.
So one of the tracks I do is in E major, and kind of runs through the E major key. And when I solo over that, I'm using a lot of triads to kind of map that out. And you'll hear guitar players do that. Stuff like that kind of Hendrix ballad playing, right?
Great answer, man. I mean, it's basically, instead of, a lot of guitarists use double stops as part of their soloing segments. And so you're saying, hey, what's wrong with a triple stop where the triple stop maybe is a triad, right?
Yeah, maybe you just don't, say you're playing over an E chord, right? Here's an E chord. Right. So maybe instead of just saying, oh, I'm going to play a B, well, maybe I'll make a whole triad. And now I see this. And that's one type of example. But you could do that with many different types of music. And you could expand that into 7 chords, which I also talk about in the course.
Awesome, man. Thank you. Let's play one more tune before we run out of time. And then we'll talk about gear and your touring and some CD stuff again. What do you want to play?
Well, I was just talking about E being the big guitar key.
Yeah.
Right. And I did the minor blues.
Yeah.
Which was in E.
Yeah.
And I was just talking about this tune, which is in E major.
Yeah.
And that one is called Purple Queen because it reminds me a little bit. It's got the chord from Purple Rain.
Yeah.
But then it goes into what feels like a Queen type of major.
Very
riff.
cool.
But I'd like to close with the third E track,
Okay.
which is neither minor or major. It's a vamp, and you can approach it either way. It's a fast blues vamp. I call it James Bonham because it's definitely very Zeppelin influence. That's the Bonham part.
Yeah.
But it's got a kind of like a funky James Brown guitar that comes
Cool.
in. And you can use minor ideas and major ideas and over the E part. So I think that's a good one to close with. And it's a fun up-tempo jam. So why don't we check that out?
You ready, Tommy?
Yeah, here we go.
Roll it. Wow.
That's fun.
That's crazy, man. Wow, that was crazy.
Yeah, and I'm trying to keep it to things I'm talking about on the course.
Yeah,
Major,
and you've done
minor.
a great job of relating all of the performances to all of the previous sections on technique and harmonic approaches and stylistic approaches. You did a really good job on this course, man. I got to tell you.
Oh, thanks. And I'll add that one of the challenges too is, you see me play solos like I just did, just live.
Yep.
Off the cuff.
Yep.
If I was in a recording studio, I
Right.
could fix things.
Right.
I could do a couple different takes. I could take one part and
Yeah.
and usually when you hear recordings, that's how it is. But
Yeah.
this is just raw.
Yeah,
live. That's how
and
it's all going down.
I think the point that you make in the course is you take these building blocks, you learn that information, you practice that information, then you kind of forget about it and play music, right?
Exactly.
So, that's why there's so many great illustrations of the principles in your course. I can't say enough about it. We're so
Thanks so
thrilled,
much.
man.
I'm not thinking about any of that stuff as I'm playing.
Right.
I'm just
Right.
These are all ideas I've absorbed. And,
Right.
But the discussion part of the course is really breaking those ideas down.
Yeah, and
looking at 'em
that's the gold here, because the information we're all looking for, you know, all the kind of secret code unlocking the door. This is what's happening underneath everything.
Exactly. And it
So-
doesn't matter what kind of music I'm playing.
Yeah,
You know,
it's brilliant,
all
man.
A
Brilliant.
lot of the same type of thinking. I'm definitely simplifying it for this course, so
Mm-hmm.
it's not over everybody's heads.
Yeah.
But you know, when we revisit some of these ideas, we can get into some more specific styles
And we
It's a little
will,
more
and
advanced,
we
yeah.
shall. In fact, promise everybody that you will come back to TrueFire and do more.
I promise I will be back.
Okay, we
and I
have
want-
video now.
and I want to hear from everybody who checks out the course. What do you want to see?
That's
You
good.
tell me. Tell
Yeah.
me what you want to see.
And there's a great, actually, we just added a terrific new feedback tool related to the course and, you know, right on the same page. So we really do love to hear from you, and we act on that, you know?
Yeah, this is just my first go around, so let us know. Let us know how you like it, what could be done, what could be improved upon.
Beautiful. We would love to learn more about the gear, literally from the pick
Okay.
to the strings, the guitar, all the way to the effects. Would you talk to that, please?
Okay. Well, the pick I'm using it right this second is a Jim Dunlop Ultex Jazz 3. I use a few different versions of the Jazz 3, and I have some with my logo.
What gauge? Is it a heavy kind of jazz pick? Is it?
Technically, it's a jazz pick. Let me see if it has a gauge on it. XL series. I don't see a number.
But does it feel like a heavy pick versus, you know, does it have a lot of bend in it or not?
It's got a bit of bend,
Okay.
and I find for playing certain ideas, it really it's great for this. It's great for jazzy ideas.
Mm-hmm.
If I was doing a more heavy rock approach, it would be also the thick Jazz 3, but the not the Ultex,
Oh.
the Tortex,
Okay.
which is
Interesting.
darker. And if you've been to any of my shows and you've caught a Testament pick
Yeah.
or an AST pick,
Yeah.
that's the same pick. That's the Tortex
Huh.
pick.
And
but live
it's-
with
you're
AST,
saying
I
it's
tend to
about
use
the
these.
same thickness, but what's the
It's
difference?
different material.
Uh-huh. So the way
I'm sorry,
it
I
strikes,
don't have one with me.
but the
it's-
way it strikes the strings, you're saying.
yes,
Okay.
yeah. And then strings.
Yep.
For solid body guitar, I use NYXL
Mm-hmm.
by Diodario,
Okay.
11 to 49.
Mm-hmm.
And when I play slightly thicker strings, when I play hollow body guitars
Okay.
and acoustic guitars.
Do you
those are-
use the same strings on both the hollow body and the acoustic?
they're all Diodario,
Okay.
but they're different types of Diodarios.
Okay.
Um,
But like 12s, right? I think you said
they're
12s.
12s,
Okay.
yeah. And the on a hollow body, I'll use what are called half rounds,
Okay.
Diodario half rounds, and then the acoustic strings. I think it's their standard steel string acoustic ones. And
Mm-hmm.
those are also 12s.
Cool. And that's your signature guitar, right?
Yes.
You've had that for a long time, haven't you?
Yeah, I've had this for a few years, about
Yeah.
5 years now.
Yeah, it's very popular.
Yeah, I'm amazed people have taken to this guitar.
Oh, they love that guitar, man, and it's gorgeous too.
you
And
know,
obviously, it sounds great.
yeah, and I my first real electric guitar was a Les Paul.
Uh-huh.
I got into the first few years of Testament. I played these thin Ibanez's,
Mm-hmm.
which I liked.
Yeah.
But then as I got older, I kind of missed the Les Paul,
Mm-hmm.
but I liked the facility of those Ibanez's.
Mm-hmm.
And ESP offered to build me a guitar that
Mm-hmm.
had the tone of my favorite Les Pauls
Mm-hmm.
with the facility for players that are more used to. Like
That's
Ibanez
why
and
that
Jackson.
guitar is so popular, right?
Yeah, people seem to relate to it a lot,
Mhm.
and I see the occasional comment. Yeah, why not just play a Les Paul? Well, I think you should have a Les Paul.
Uh-huh.
I tell everybody get a good Les Paul.
Uh-huh.
The problem is first of all, they're expensive.
Yeah.
Not that this is cheap, but
Right.
The budget version of this actually is quite affordable.
Yeah.
And I use that live too. That actually sounds really good. But also the with the Les Paul, they're harder to play. They sound great. And I always say, get a good Les Paul just to have.
Sure.
But you don't want to, I don't want to take those on the road
Right.
unless you have, the budget
Right.
to have a crew that can look after
Right.
the valuable guitars. And this has the right tone. And it also just has a few extras too. Like,
Yeah.
I like where the volume knobs are. And it's got this special thing, the coil tap, which means I can lift the tone knob
Nice.
and get a more Stratocaster sound,
Okay.
especially like on this pickup.
Oh, wow.
And I do that a few times in the course. You'll see me switching, and even within the same song, going back to a double coil. But just to hear a little bit of that,
Yeah.
that's kind of got that Stevie Ray-ish.
Very versatile, man. So if we wanted more, specs and details, we can go online and
ESP.com.
And look
Just
for
go
your
to the
signature
artist
model.
models.
Yeah.
Alex Skolnick. There are a couple different versions of this. There's the newest one is called the Aquaburst, and it has a tremolo bar. And I was never a huge tremolo user. I just tried to get. It was just so popular.
Yeah.
When I emerged as a player.
Right.
But now I think I've paid my dues. I've allowed myself to enjoy the tremolo a little bit.
Good for you, man.
I'm not doing like crazy, dive bombs or anything, but just as an
expressive device.
As an expressive device.
Yeah.
It's wonderful.
Very
and
cool.
I played a tribute show with Alan Holdsworth's band last year in New York, which was amazing. And I was so thankful I had that because for playing his music, it's really essential. And then if I put on an old Jeff Beck record and play along, it really helps. I really like it. So that's the Aquaburst version of this guitar.
Very cool. And the acoustic guitar, and by the way, if you haven't heard Alex play acoustic music on an acoustic guitar, I'm telling you, or you played that for us. We did that, produced that All-Star Guitar Night show. You came on that one show, and standing ovation for like 5 minutes. It was just crazy.
Yeah, I'll show off one other album.
Okay.
This is from a few years ago called Planetary Coalition.
Yeah.
And here I played with international artists, all original music that I composed. But I have so like each tune represents a different region. So some of the artists are very well known. Like my song for Mexico has Rodrigo y Gabriela, who are quite well known. But then there's others that aren't as well known. And I have musicians from India, Africa. China, I do a duet with a pipa player.
Really?
And it's all on acoustic.
That's great. Show the other one. Show them both for a second so we can get a good screenshot of that. Can you get in tight on that, Adam? Put them both up there. And by the way, those are our copies.
They are.
So don't stick them back in your bag.
Yeah,
and make sure you sign them.
Those belong to you.
Okay, great, man. Perfect. Thank you, man. Now let's talk pedals and effects and amps.
Okay.
Start with the pedals you've got here for this project.
Okay. It's funny. I was talking about the tremolo bar, and I avoided the tremolo bar for years, and I've recently allowed myself the indulgence of using it. The same thing with the wah. I've never been a big wah player.
Yeah.
But especially when I play improvised music, I enjoy it. Not all the time. So the first thing I'm running through is a wah, and I use that on the blues track. The The wah is made by Dunlop. It's the standard, the Crybaby, which they reissued.
Yeah.
Of course, it's a very different sound when you play it with distortion. So the distortion I'm using is called a Tube Dreamer 88.
Okay.
It's a bit like the Tube Screamer, which is
And it's that purple. We have your floorboard up on the screen. It's the purple box.
It's actually blue. I guess
Blue.
Maybe it's purplish. It's got a light bulb on the front.
Yeah. Put your foot by it so everyone knows which one we're talking about.
Right. Okay. So if everybody can see it, that's great.
Yeah.
So it's got on the right, this side, the left side.
Yeah.
It's a high gain channel.
Okay.
That tone right there. You're almost. If on the right side, you have a sort of medium gain, like a.
Nice. So 2 foot switches to
Yeah.
switch between 2 distortion.
And if the high gain is not enough, you can play both.
Okay. Nice. And that's called what?
Tube Dreamer 88. That's made by Jam Pedals.
Nice.
Company in Greece.
Yeah, they're phenomenal.
Yeah.
Phenomenal. Okay, next pedal.
Okay, so actually I skipped one.
Uh-huh.
This is called the Distillery. And this is really it's a hard pedal to describe. It's one you tend not to adjust, and it stays on most of the time. So without it, I get this sound, which is nice, decent sound. But I step on the Distillery and I get almost like a turbo version. Of the same sound. And I guess it's probably more noticeable when the distortion is.
And you say that's usually on all the time?
Yeah, it depends on the amp. It depends on what setup I'm playing through.
Okay.
But I find when I'm playing with unfamiliar setups,
Yeah.
especially with through combo amplifiers,
Okay.
it really helps. It just gives it an extra bite.
Great. Next box.
The next one is this MXR Chorus, re-released by Jim Dunlop, who also makes the Crybaby wah. Interesting. I don't think I used much of this in the course. Yeah, I don't have it. I don't have that on. But it gives me for certain songs, especially with my trio, I'll use it. The title track of the new album, Conundrum, I do use it. But for this course, I didn't use it.
Okay.
Mike Stern, I believe, uses that pedal. He at least has a similar sound to that pedal.
Cool.
And that's plugged into a tuner. And that's then there's another distortion box.
Okay.
The Boss OS2.
Huh. And you use that as a standalone or in conjunction with or both?
As a standalone.
Okay.
So there were a couple tracks where I wanted a slightly different sound. And it's very similar to the Tube Dreamer. It's just one specific sound. That's it. And next to that is one called the Blue Note.
Mm-hmm.
That's a little bit like, it's funny because between the Boss and the Blue Note, it does basically what the Tube Dreamer does.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, this is like a non-high gain distortion.
Mm. Nice.
Yeah, that's made by J Rocket Accessories.
Okay, cool.
Yeah, just a real. I don't use it all the time, but yeah, sometimes if I want a slight distortion that's not high gain and not the same as the Tube Dreamer,
Okay.
I use that. It's nice because I can set those at different levels too.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I have the Tube Dreamer set at a higher level, and
Okay.
then if I'm playing with a band and the dynamic is softer,
Right.
I can set but I still want distortion. I can
Right.
set those other ones.
Cool.
Then I have this. This is just a boost made by Mulan, a Korean company.
Mm-hmm.
And it just, whatever sound I have,
It boosts
it
it
boosts
up.
it. I kept it on, but it comes in really handy live.
Yeah.
Because suddenly the band gets loud,
Okay.
and you're not as loud. Instead of having to run over to the amp.
Right. A quick way to get the volume up.
Gives you a nice quick
Cool.
boost. The micro synth, that is one I have not used in this course. It's a strange pedal, as you can see, right? It looks like a big equalizer.
Yeah.
And I only use it occasionally. Usually if it's an open improvisation, especially like funk.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so. Actually, it sounds. It's got to be the right setup for that. But basically, it's that.
Got it.
The Phase 95, also by MXR.
Okay.
That's that very classic sound. Everybody probably recognizes.
Yeah. Yeah.
Right.
Beautiful.
When you have that with distortion.
Nice.
It's fun. It's a little bit like the wah, except you don't have to operate it manually.
Right. You don't have to use your foot there, right?
Vicious Vibe by TC Electronics. I didn't use this in this course, but it's kind of a weird psychedelic sound.
Yeah.
The Splash Reverb, I believe I use that occasionally. Actually, normally I have it set more like this.
So that's just a reverb pedal.
It's like a long reverb. So for
And are we running reverb in the amp, or so the only reverb we'd get is from that pedal when he needs it, right? Okay.
So like when I demonstrated a little bit of the Gymnopédie, the classical piece, I use it on that. So it normally sounds like a
Nice. Yeah. Nice.
And normally I would play that with acoustic. The Flashback by TC Electro. I use this for much of the course. That's my main delay.
Is that your favorite delay?
One of them.
I mean, is it your go-to delay? If you had to go out to a gig or on the road, is that the delay you're going to bring with you?
Yeah, pretty much.
Okay.
Pretty much. It's probably the easiest to operate. The one next to it is great too. I don't have it hooked up because that is an effects loop delay.
That's that bigger box?
The bigger one.
On the end, right?
That's called the Andromeda.
Okay.
And that's made by Seymour Duncan.
Now, do you have your delay on, like when you're soloing, almost always?
Yeah, for soloing most of the time.
And what are your settings? Some people want to know.
Okay.
Myself included.
You know, it's interesting. This delay doesn't have, it doesn't give you the exact numbers.
Okay.
It doesn't have a digital readout.
Yeah.
But generally, I set the delay to between 300 and 450.
Okay.
In fact, very often to test it, I'll play this like.
Cool.
The Dave Gilmore thing.
Uh-huh.
I figure, if it works for that, it's in the ballpark.
Yeah, that's
and then
cool.
I'll adjust. And then the feedback, it's usually it's like a half a dozen repeats.
Okay.
And then I don't want it. I don't want it to drown the sound.
Right.
And it's going to be. It's got to work with the overdrive as well. So it's there, but it's not overpowering.
Yeah, very sweet.
And if I'm in a live situation with an effects loop, I'll hook up the Andromeda, and I'll use that on certain sounds. That's a stronger delay. I'll usually have the delay itself set similarly, but I like having two delays. I like having the option to go from one to the other.
From one delay setting to the other?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So,
I might have the Andromeda set higher.
Yeah.
More power. Yeah, and I'll use that for like a slower tune.
Got it.
And I'll use the flashback for solos. But there's another one I use called the Boss Giga delay. And I tend to use that if I'm playing through a large amplifier, like a stack.
Really?
And I get a loud volume. So I play for another project called Metal Allegiance, which is an all-star group. And when we play, I use the Boss Giga delay.
Yeah.
And I run it through the effects loop. Because if I do this, if I run this flashback in line through an amp like that, then it's just going to be washy and overpowering. So the flashback is awesome. Yeah. But it needs to be run through a combo amp. Or a small setup. Yeah.
So what we're looking at is that, like, what did you bring with you for the shoot? Your most typical, rig, or did you put this together for the material you were going to do down here?
This rig is pretty much what I use for when I play with my trio.
Okay.
Yeah, this is my small instrumental group rig.
So if you were going, to a bigger gig or doing some of the heavier stuff, do you have literally a separate rig, or do you put it together before you go out, kind of a thing?
Yeah, I mean, most of the gigs I do have a different rig.
Okay.
So when I play with Testament, everyone in Testament now that plays a stringed instrument plays through a Kemper, which is a Pro-Fi amp.
Yeah.
Which are great, and I was never a big fan of those types of modeling amps, but they've really come a long way.
We've been impressed with the Kemper, right?
Yeah, it sounds really good, and it's just incredibly convenient, especially when we fly to different parts of the world.
Sure.
Where all they have is rentals, and you'll get some Marshall from the 70s that needs new tubes.
Right.
And, it's just nice. The Kemper, it is. You turn it on, and it's exactly how you left it.
Nice.
And it's great. The front of house.
So you bring it with you. You have it at home.
Yeah, we bring it with us.
And then boom.
That most of the effects are self-contained. There's a few pedals. I do use the same phase pedal, and I use the Tube Dreamer just a little bit, even
Yeah.
though I use a lot of the amp distortion.
Yeah.
But I use a blend, and then when I'm gonna one of my other heavy gigs coming up is around the NAMM show. I'm gonna play at House of Blues with Metal Allegiance, and there I have a bigger pedal board that has a lot of these same pedals, but it's very similar. And I'll also play with Stu Ham, our friend. We're actually playing right before NAMM.
Cool.
Well, when I play with him, I use this rig. This rig is this is my jazz rig. It's my jazz rock rig. And for something like this, where I'm talking about music, or if I'm giving a class in a music store, a master class, it's this rig.
Cool. Very cool. Well, thank you for a very thorough rundown, and I can
my
tell
pleasure.
that people were thrilled to get that much detail.
They got a lot of information.
Yeah, they did, and I
More than
picked
they
up
were
a few
expecting.
tips and a couple of pedal ideas to add to the shopping list.
Nice.
Man, thank you for not only coming to TrueFire and us finally getting this thing together, but carving out this time in the middle of your session to share your thoughts and insights in playing with the audience. There are a lot of people tuned into this thing. The feedback was phenomenal.
Oh, good.
So
I hope you
well
all
worth
enjoyed
the
it.
time. Thank you, man. Can we roll a track and you play us out? And
Sure.
We'll get back to the session. What do you want?
What did we not play?
Didn't play over the purple. We didn't play over the Vinny.
What was the last one?
The Vinny, I think.
Oh, yeah, let's play that one. That's a great one.
Thank you, everyone out
Thanks,
there,
folks.
for tuning us in. We really appreciate your support. Stay tuned to the schedule. We've got others coming up that I think you might be interested in, and we appreciate your support. Later.